Imagine waking up one morning, you grab your phone, you open up your favorite social media app, and you discover that your entire online identity has just been wiped out.
Just completely gone.
Right. Your public voice, your connections, all the thousands of people who follow your work, it is all just suddenly gone.
And replaced by a generic suspension notice, usually.
Exactly. A generic notice right where all your thoughts used to be. And there is absolutely no explanation as to why.
Which is the most frustrating part.
Oh, it's maddening. So you appeal, right? You
Yeah.
ask questions and you get nothing back but, automated rejections and total silence.
Just talking to a wall.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And then days later, out of nowhere, you are allowed back in. The suspension notice vanishes, your account works again, but once more there is absolute silence.
Right. No apology, no email.
Nothing. No explanation of what went wrong. Just a quiet unlocking of the door.
It's an incredibly unsettling scenario to find yourself in. Yet, it's actually become standard operating procedure in our modern digital public square.
It's just how things work now.
It is. The machinery of our online lives is literally designed to operate this way.
And that is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone. We are looking at a fascinating essay and an accompanying piece of visual art by Dr. Levny Moten from Uncompressed Thinking.
The piece is titled Reinstatement Without Admission.
Right. And our mission today is to really examine the hidden architecture of platform moderation. We want to figure out what it actually means when a digital account is restored, but, the truth of what happened is completely left in the dark.
Because we often think of getting an account back as a victory, right?
Yeah, you get your voice back.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We assume a mistake was made and then the platform corrected it. But the source material we're digging into today really challenges us to look closer at the underlying mechanics of that silence.
And what that silence actually accomplishes for the platform.
Precisely.
When I first read through this material, I kept trying to find a real-world equivalent just to make sense of the feeling. And the closest thing I could come up with was getting locked out of your own house by a phantom landlord.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like, you come home, your key just doesn't work. The landlord changed the locks without a single word, so you're sleeping on the street for days, you're shouting up at the landlord's window, and they just completely ignore you.
Total radio silence.
Yeah. And then one Tuesday, you push the door and it just swings open. It's mysteriously unlocked.
And when you finally see the landlord in the hallway,
they refuse to make eye contact. They refuse to apologize. They won't explain why they locked you out in the first place. So you're back inside, sure, but you're constantly looking over your shoulder wondering what arbitrary rule you broke.
that landlord analogy captures the emotional reality of it perfectly, I think. Because the terror isn't just the lockout.
Right, it's the realization.
Exactly. It's this sudden, stark realization that the landlord possesses a power they simply do not have to explain to you.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. But to truly understand the danger of this silent reinstatement, like that moment the door quietly unlocks, we first have to understand how the silence began in the first place.
Right, we need to touch on the context from the first half of this digital saga.
Which the author covers in a previous essay, right?
Yeah, he references a previous piece called Verdict Without a Charge. Basically, his account on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, was suddenly restricted.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. He filed appeals, and those were instantly rejected by automated systems. His account was plunged into what he calls read-only paralysis.
A really chilling phrase, honestly.
It is. And there was one detail from that first part that really stood out to me as particularly brutal. His profile was publicly drained of its social body.
Right, the numbers just vanish.
Yeah, at one point it literally displayed 0 followers and 0 following. It's not just taking the microphone away, it's scrubbing away the evidence that anyone ever listened to you.
Well, we can actually look at the mechanics of why that happens. From a database engineering perspective, when an account is flagged for severe restriction, the system often severs the user's social graph.
Wait, like intentionally?
Yeah, intentionally. It severs those connections to prevent any of the user's data from propagating through the network while the freeze is active.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was a mechanical necessity.
It is, but the psychological effect on the user and on the public is total social erasure.
It looks like you've been wiped from existence.
Exactly. However, the core friction point here isn't just the fact that the account was suspended, or even that the database severed the connections.
So what's the core issue then?
The structural problem is that a violation was declared A verdict was handed down, but no specific charge was ever named.
Ah, right.
The platform never pointed to the post, or the phrase, the link, or the image that supposedly crossed the line.
And, I found myself grappling with that a bit while reading, because if we take a step back, we're talking about platforms with hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of
The
users.
scale is massive.
It's staggering. So it seems obvious that moderation is necessary, right? These platforms need automated systems to instantly remove actual threats, spam networks, fraud, illegal content.
Oh, absolutely.
We rely on those spam filters. So if an automated classifier occasionally sweeps up a legitimate user, shouldn't we just accept that a system operating at that massive scale is doing its best?
That's the common argument, yeah.
Right, because it seems impossible for them to offer a personalized manual trial for every single suspended account.
Well, that is the standard defense
Hmm?
provided by large tech platforms, and it relies heavily on those economics of scale.
Because human review is expensive.
Right. You are absolutely correct. The human review for every single flagged post is financially and logistically impossible. But that defense masks a really critical distinction in how power is being applied here.
Okay, how so?
Moderation without specificity isn't actually enforcing rules in any publicly meaningful sense. It is exercising unaccountable discretion behind a curtain.
Wow. So it's essentially a trial with no indictment. You are guilty, but the system refuses to tell you what you did.
Exactly. Let's unpack the mechanics of that refusal, because it's not just a matter of scale. It's actually a matter of liability and corporate strategy.
Oh, interesting. Strategy how?
Think about it. If a platform issues a specific charge, if they say, you are suspended because you posted this exact sentence on Tuesday at 4 p.m., they give the user something concrete to argue against.
Right. The user can say, wait, that was sarcasm.
Yes, or they can point to context or a misinterpretation of the rule. But that creates friction.
And friction costs money.
Exactly. It creates a massive customer service burden and potentially a legal or public relations liability.
I see.
So by issuing a verdict without a charge, the platform removes the very foundation of accountability. You simply cannot effectively appeal an accusation that has never been defined.
Because there's nothing to push back against. It's just a blank wall. And what I found so compelling about this essay is that this lack of transparency, this strategic silence, it doesn't vanish when the punishment ends.
No, it doesn't.
When the author finally gets his account back, the silence actually becomes even more revealing.
The silent return is really where the architecture of the system shows its hand.
The author describes that moment of reinstatement so vividly, too. A button just starts working again, the profile reappears, he can post, he can interact.
But the catch is how it happens.
Right. The defining characteristic of getting his digital life back is that it happened silently. There was no notification explaining the reversal, no email.
That silence is a very heavy presence in the room.
It really is.
The author actually created an incredibly striking graphic to map out this experience. I think it's worth exploring the details of that image because it visualizes this underlying technology perfectly.
Oh, the image is haunting. You have the smartphone screen right in the center, displaying a bright green, unlocked padlock.
Yeah, that growing green lock.
And the text on the screen reads, "Account reinstated. Your account has been restored. No explanation provided. No admission of error. The silence remains."
It's so stark.
Yeah, because the first part is in standard white text, but those lines about no explanation and no admission are in this stark warning label red. It literally feels like an error message that isn't supposed to be seen.
And if you look closely at the background details of that graphic, it tells the story of the mechanism we were just discussing.
The hidden parts.
Right. Behind the phone screen, on the right side, there is this cold, metallic, almost robotic face labeled AI interface. And right below that, in smaller, highly technical text, it says human override, hidden.
I kept looking at that human override, hidden detail. It really got me thinking about how these AI classifiers actually function in the real world.
They're essentially black boxes.
Yeah, we throw the term AI around a lot, but in this context, we're talking about natural language processing algorithms and behavioral scoring, right?
Yes, mostly pattern recognition.
They scan millions of posts looking for token combinations or behavioral patterns that match previous spam or abuse, and they assign a probability score to the account.
It's all just statistical math.
Right. If your account hits, say, a 0.98 probability of being a violation, the system just auto-suspends you. There is no human looking at your context.
And that hidden human override in the graphic, that represents the illusion of recourse.
The fake appeal button.
Exactly. The platform provides an appeal button, which suggests to you, the user, that a real human being will step in, review the AI's math, and apply common
That
sense.
they don't.
At this scale, the appeal is often just routed back through another layer of automated classification, or it just sits in an endless queue forever.
Wow.
The human element is hidden because, for the vast majority of users, it effectively doesn't exist. And the bottom right corner of the graphic shows this dark, oppressive cityscape, which perfectly visualizes this hopelessness.
The user is so small compared to it all.
Yes, the user is a tiny entity standing against an invisible machine that processes their fate based on a behavioral score they are never allowed to see.
You know, it actually reminded me of a much more common system we interact with all the time, automated credit scoring.
Oh, that is a fantastic comparison.
It feels very similar mechanically, right? If my
Mhm.
credit score suddenly drops 30 points, the credit bureau doesn't call me to explain why.
No, they definitely don't.
I just get an alert that my score dropped. I have to log in and guess if it was a late payment, a high balance, or a hard inquiry that triggered the algorithm. The formula is a proprietary trade secret. I'm just left in the dark to decipher the machine's logic.
It's the exact same dynamic. And taking that credit score analogy a step further, if your score suddenly jumps back up 30 points the following month, the bureau still doesn't explain it.
No, they just update the number.
The algorithm simply recalculated based on new data, or maybe a previous error timed out. There was no apology for the stress that the sudden drop caused you. The system just updates its surface.
It just pretends nothing happened.
Right. And the author makes a brilliant observation about this illusion of resolution. A normal, legitimate correction actually says something.
Yes. If a human being makes a mistake, even in a corporate setting, they usually tell you.
They explain what went wrong.
Right. A normal correction acknowledges that a restriction was applied in error. It names the rule that was mistakenly triggered. Even if it's an automated email, it provides at least one sentence connecting the original punishment to the restoration.
It acknowledges that an event took place in the real world.
Exactly. But the platform provided absolutely none of that here. It merely flipped the switch back to the on position.
Which brings up a really common reaction people have to this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might look at this situation and think, well, the account is back, the microphone has been returned.
Just be happy about it, right?
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, it's easy to feel like the user should just take the win. If the black box algorithm recalculates in your favor, or that hidden human finally clicks approve, shouldn't you just be grateful the ordeal is over and move on? Why dig into the architecture if the door is open again?
It is a very natural instinct to just take the win and walk away from a stressful situation. I mean, we all want to do that. But the text provides a razor-sharp counterargument here. Restored access is not due process.
Let's break that down, because I really think that's the pivot point of the whole essay. The platform gives the access back specifically so that the user's complaint dissolves.
Precisely. If you are back online, your immediate crisis is over. You stop complaining, the public sees the account restored, and because there is no explanation, society naturally treats the whole thing as a technical glitch.
Right. The author refers to it as a weather event or a technical mood swing.
Which is such a convenient framing for the platform. By treating a suspension as a random glitch, it preserves the platform's immense power while completely erasing the visible consequences of that power.
They wipe their hands clean.
Exactly. By simply turning the account back on in silence, the platform never has to admit that their AI classifier failed. They never have to disclose what triggered the false positive. They never have to actually clear the user's name.
And that reputation stain is a huge piece of this puzzle. This isn't just about the mechanics of an app. It deeply impacts the person and their community.
It has real social consequences.
Yes. For several days, anyone who visited the author's profile didn't see his essays. They saw a giant public suspension notice. And a suspension notice carries a very specific social weight.
It acts as a digital scarlet letter, even if it's temporary.
Right. When you see someone is suspended, human nature kicks in. Some people visiting his page might have assumed he did something genuinely improper or malicious or abusive.
They assume guilt.
And the silent restoration does absolutely nothing to repair that damage. It doesn't tell his followers, hey, our automated system flagged this in error, this creator is in the clear. It just leaves this lingering fog of suspicion.
Because the public is left wondering.
Yeah, they wonder if he got away with something or if he secretly deleted the offending post to appease the moderators.
This brings us to a structural comparison the author makes, which attempts to frame the architecture of these digital spaces. He introduces the metaphor of the XKGB.
Now, the essay is very careful to contextualize that term.
Yes, we should be clear here. The text explicitly states that this is not a literal historical equivalence to Soviet secret police.
Right, it's not trying to be overly dramatic.
No, it is not an attempt at historical melodrama. Instead, it is a structural comparison regarding information asymmetry.
Information asymmetry, meaning the imbalance of what the platform knows about the user versus what the user knows about the platform.
Exactly. The metaphor describes an invisible apparatus that has the power to punish and unpunish, to erase and restore, to condemn and rehabilitate a citizen, all while remaining completely and utterly unnamed.
It's all one-sided visibility.
Right. The state, or in this case the tech platform, possesses total visibility over the user's actions. Every click, every post, every token of text is logged, scored, and analyzed. But the user possesses zero visibility into the platform's decision-making process.
And the first exhibit of this structure was the punishment without a charge. The second exhibit is the restoration without an admission.
Two sides of the same coin.
Right. Together, they show the exact same invisible structure from both sides. X can restrict a public voice without telling the user what was wrong, and X can restore that voice without telling the public what was wrong with the restriction.
They control the entire loop.
Coming and going, yeah. The platform retains total control of the narrative by simply withholding the explanation.
And this forces the user into a vast space of ignorance. Think about all the unknown variables in this single incident for the author. Was it an overly aggressive AI classifier that misread a metaphor in an essay?
Right. Could just be bad math.
Or was it a human reviewer in a moderation center halfway across the world who was rushing to meet a quota and clicked the wrong box on a screen?
Or, and this is where it gets really dark, was it mass reporting from hostile users?
Which is a huge problem.
We see this happen all the time, where a coordinated group weaponizes the moderation system by falsely reporting an account they disagree with until the algorithm automatically suspends it.
Just gaming the system.
Was it triggered by a sensitive political subject? The system leaves the user completely in the dark, forcing them to guess which of their actions offended the machine.
And the chilling realization that the text brings us to is that this ignorance is not the user's failure to understand this system.
It's not a bug.
No, this ignorance is the very architecture of the system.
It is entirely by design. The system left the author with only visible facts. The account was active, then suspended, appeals were rejected, no charge was named, social erasure was displayed, and then days later, it was restored with no explanation.
Just a sequence of raw actions.
Right. If you look at just the mechanical facts of the event, without needing to invent any conspiracy theories, it proves something vital about our digital infrastructure. A user can be acted upon heavily by a system without ever being answered by it.
Which really forces us to consider the long-term consequences for our digital public squares. This matters because explanation is not merely a customer service courtesy provided by a tech company.
No, it's much bigger than that.
Explanation is the absolute minimum condition of accountable power.
And that, I think, is the crux of this entire deep dive. Explanation is not a courtesy. It's a requirement of accountability.
Because if a platform has the sheer power to instantly damage a public voice, to interrupt a person's speech, to sever their social connections, and to create the public impression of wrongdoing, then it owes its users specificity.
It owes them the facts.
It owes them the rule they broke. It owes them the post that triggered the classifier. It owes them the words. Without those specifics, the platform isn't moderating a community. It is simply wielding raw, unfiltered power disguised as a user agreement.
Wow. It is a sobering way to look at the apps we open every single day. There are two incredibly memorable quotes from the text that I think perfectly encapsulate this entire dynamic.
Which one stood out to you?
The first one is about that moment of silent return when the suspension is lifted without a word. The author writes, "The wall moved back, the corridor reopened, but no one said who built the wall."
It's such a brilliant way to describe the lingering paranoia. You are allowed to walk forward again, you're allowed to speak, but you're acutely aware that the environment around you is controlled by unseen hands.
Hands that could drop the wall again at any moment.
For any reason.
Exactly. And the second quote is really the ultimate warning for everyone listening, regardless of whether you've ever faced a suspension or not. He writes, "The machine returns the microphone and keeps the file."
That is the critical takeaway right there. Do not be comforted too quickly by the restoration of access.
Because the problem isn't fixed.
Right. An unexplained reversal is not transparency. It is the apparatus correcting its surface while protecting its core mechanism. The platform gets to avoid liability, the user is expected to be grateful they have their microphone back, and the public is expected to forget the interruption ever happened.
The final truth of the essay is a heavy one. The account was restored, but the truth was not. And that missing truth creates a void that we all have to navigate every time we log on and participate in the modern digital square.
It changes the psychological environment of the space entirely.
It really does. Which leaves you, the listener, with something incredibly important to mull over today. We've spent a lot of time analyzing what happens when the microphone is taken away and silently handed back. But what about the moments before you even speak?
That's the real question.
If our primary platforms for public discourse, the places where we share ideas, debate, build businesses, and connect with our communities, can silence and reinstate us without ever explaining the mechanics of why, how does that invisible, unaccountable power change what you choose to say in the first place?
It makes you second-guess everything.
Does the mere threat of a silent, unexplained suspension create a chilling effect on your everyday conversations, even when your microphone is turned on? Just something to think about the next time you draft a post, stare at the screen, and hesitate for just a second before hitting send.